Okay, so this is the end user training webinar for the FLIR Duo Pro R. This is our newest product within the SUAS line, and this webinar should basically get you up to speed with the capabilities and the specs of this new camera and help you in the process of determining which thermal imaging camera is right for you and your applications. So again, I mentioned the Q&A session that will happen at the end. But submitting those questions really is going to be the largest value for you attending this webinar personally or while it's live. So please shoot anything that I don't cover into that Q&A box, and I will go through those. And again, I maybe won't know everything, so if there's something I don't know, I'll consult with my colleagues and make sure that I get you a personal answer in a timely fashion. So I just want to get to know a little bit about who's here, because we do have a decent number of attendees. There was I almost reached my 1,000 person limit on this webinar for registrants. Didn't quite get everyone attending, but still, I'm just curious to see, first of all, where everyone's joining from. So if you could just click on the box that best represents where you are joining from. So already, just in that amount of time, we are covering the entire globe as far as each of these regions is attended by someone. So that's really awesome. I'm going to leave it up for just a few seconds just so I can get the most complete data, but really excited to see how many people are joining in. Cool. Mostly North America, but we still have a good showing in Latin America and Europe, and then smaller numbers in the Middle East and in Asia Pacific, but still it's middle of the night there. So really awesome, and thanks for being a part of this. And then I also want to know who either already has a drone or their company already has a drone. Where are you at with using aerial technology, not necessarily thermal technology, but just using drones in the workplace? I'll leave this for a second, and I would assume this would be a large portion, but we're seeing probably around 90% have drones or are using drones, and there's 10% still investigating, and just a small number that are not using drones at all. So it's interesting to note for me to see kind of the audience that I'm presenting to. And then the final question before we get started is about thermal imaging cameras. So who either already owns or your company owns a thermal imaging camera for drones? Okay, I will try to speak slower. People are sending me some interesting stuff, but sure. Okay, so about 50% of you already own thermal imaging cameras, and 44% investigating it, and 5% not at all. But that's fantastic information. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so the Duo Pro R was announced at Interdrone and CIOE in China last month. Thus far, the response has been extremely positive, and we're pretty excited about what the industry has been giving us as far as feedback. And that feedback is extremely important to us as a tool for creating our new products, for changing our procedures within our business. So thank you for all those that contributed that feedback, and we continue to welcome that for the development of products into the future. So today is October 13th, which is scheduled for this end user webinar, and is really the catalyst for us to drive the response or to get an idea of where this product will take us into the future. We anticipated shipping the last week of October, but now it's looking like the first units will be shipped in early November. This is just due to some internal production stuff, but we should be able to adhere to that. The reason we announced it in September and weren't shipping for 2 months is that Interdrone and CIOE provided a perfect opportunity for us to launch the product. But between the announcement and when we're actually shipping, even though the amount of time isn't ideal, it's allowed us to assess the demand and fix minor issues so that we can make sure that we deliver on customer expectations. So we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to stick to early November and that you'll be really pleased with the product when it's in your hands. So let's talk about some of the major selling points for the Duo Pro R. First, it's a dual EOIR sensor. So you're looking at a 12 megapixel RGB camera on the left-hand side of this image. And then we have a Tau2 thermal imaging camera on the right-hand side, and that's in both 336 and 640 resolution options. It's a similar product to the Duo that was announced earlier this year, but it needs to be emphasized that this is the high performance and easy to integrate version of that. The Duo is low resolution, this is high resolution, but they do both offer this EOIR sensor capability, so that's why the Duo and Duo Pro have similarities in name, but they're very, very different in capability. This is a product that was designed for drone use, and some of the work that's done with the thermal imager is to be optimized for drone use, to be for images shot from the sky, but it's likely to find its way into other solutions. It is drone agnostic, so any airframe that can carry the weight and power it is likely to be integrated. We've decided to limit the production of this product only to radiometric units. This was done to emphasize that the Duo Pro R is a premium product and has premium performance. There have been some questions in the past about what capabilities or maybe some confusion about whether a camera can measure temperature of every pixel, which is what radiometry does. And so we just decided to make that blanket across all the versions of this camera. So you'll only see radiometric. They all have R at the end of them. The camera is able to provide a single camera imagery, picture-in-picture, and then the blended imagery using the MSX technology. And that MSX technology provides greater image detail, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. The Duo Pro R also has a built-in IMU and GPS for georeferencing and geotagging images for better stitching performance, and this will be used generally for mapping applications. And then lastly, the Duo Pro R is manufactured in Europe, which allows for 30 Hertz exportation under de minimis rules. So there is still paperwork that is required to do the exportation of this product, but it will mean that we are able to open up 30 Hertz units into a larger number of markets and achieve faster shipments. When you're talking about military applications, these are still going to be suspect to greater scrutiny due to global trade compliance. And then also, like I said, licenses will be required on a case-by-case basis. But with that being said, there are no 9 Hertz versions of this camera. They're all 30 Hertz. But because it's not manufactured in the US, it's under European Union global trade compliance or export regulations. And so it is handled differently than the products that we currently have under the UAS space. They will ship from Sweden, generally to the country that they'll be sold into. Outside of, there's some differences with the US because the US is used to using these products. So once these cameras enter into the US, if they are then shipped internationally from the US, then they do have to comply to US export restrictions. So just keep that in mind, that these are a bit different. You aren't going to be using a 9 Hertz, and if you're in China or if you're in Eastern Europe or somewhere where 9 Hertz units are the norm, you can use the 30 Hertz units there, but there are still some trade compliance laws. So I hope that that's covered, because that is a big change to this camera over previous cameras, and I just want to make sure that I drove that home. So I want to highlight what MSX does. MSX is a proprietary and patented technology from FLIR, and it basically takes the edges of the RGB image and overlays it over the thermal image. So basically, when you're there's identifying marks that don't have their own thermal signature, this will allow that data to be processed into a single image so that you're not missing anything. And although I don't have any aerial assets that I can show yet, here's an example of what MSX looks like. So you're looking at a vending machine on the left, and maybe you wouldn't even be able to tell from that thermal image alone that it is a vending machine. But when you add the MSX, like the image on the right, you're able to see that there's pretzels inside the vending machine, as well as red vines, and you can see the numbers and the labels. You could also see the change in currencies that it accepts on the right hand side. So this is data that would be missing from a thermal image by itself while you're flying these missions with a drone, rather than getting thermal and then having to land, change a camera, and go fly back out with a visible camera. You have both on board, and you're also able to get this really crucial data all from single images using MSX. So hopefully that all makes sense. In the industrial space, you'd likely use this for seeing serial numbers or pull numbers for power line inspections. You would be able to use it for license plate numbers or for addresses on houses for public safety things. So that extra data is just, first of all, it's saving you battery time or flight time or taking the drone back to change cameras, but it's also giving you single images that have all the data captured in one. So this is the only other poll that I'm going to put up is just whether you think MSX is going to be useful for your applications of drones. Because we've talked about it, and I think that it's really powerful technology, but in the drone space, what you're doing, do you think that having both or having this blended imagery means something? And please just answer based off of how you feel. It's not going to break my heart. But from what I'm seeing, it's very high on the very useful, and the somewhat useful pretty much combined makes up everything. But it's interesting to note, and we'll see. I think that once these cameras get in people's hands and you're able to do this with high resolution, which is not what you've been using with either the Plane Duo or the FLIR One that has also MSX technology, it'll be interesting to see what's done with it. So thank you for that. Okay. So let's go on to this. So let's talk about what's on board. So on these cameras, on the Duo Pro R, the thermal imager, again, is a Tau 2 based. It's either a 640 by 512 or a 336 by 256 resolution camera. Those are one of the few options that you would need to select when choosing these cameras, but it's going to be relatively the same imager that you're getting on the FLIR View, for the FLIR View Pro or the Zenmuse XT that you might be used to flying. There's also the 12 megapixel camera that's on board, and it also records 4K video. The downlink is going to be in 1080p at its maximum. There's also the IMU, the inertial measurement unit, that's on board, along with the GPS. There's also a number of other sensors, such as temperature and humidity sensors, and currently these are all to be used for georeferencing, but in the future it's possible we can use these sensors to also contribute to higher quality imagery from the or higher accuracy in the radiometric imagery. So these sensors make this camera powerful, and if you look at the size of the camera, a good portion of these are dedicated to those a good portion of the size is dedicated to having these sensors on board to make this an extremely powerful product. The IMU and GPS allow those images to be referenced without using the drone's GPS. It's completely dedicated so that the camera can do all that internally, and so hopefully you see the value in that. Now, as far as integration, with this product, we placed a high level or a high amount of our focus on making it easy to integrate. So the weight of this product is around 325 grams. The 25 millimeter version on the 640 does weigh slightly more, and the size measured in millimeters you can see here just to get an idea. If you need a CAD drawing or anything like that, shoot me an email and I'll send over the drawing. So if you do want to do some integration work, separate gimbals or something like that, that you can make sure that this camera will work for you. It also offers digital and video output. The digital output is going to come through the 10-pin, I think it's a JST interface cable, and the digital video will come through the HDMI connector. We have both on here so that it just had flexibility, so you would be able to choose a range of downlink options rather than make you or force you into a higher cost digital output or force you into a lower resolution or lower capability analog output. So that's why we did that. The protocol for the Duo Pro R is standardized for Mavlink systems, and there's 3 PWMs to allow for greater control of the camera. This will allow you to change color palettes, and manipulate the gimbal, record images, etc. And this protocol basically allows for that full functionality of an aerial thermal imaging system. From the feedback that we received from previous UAS products, we offered a wider range for power output. So you're looking at between 5 and 26 volts for the camera. Okay, and then you can also record thermal and visible images simultaneously on the 2 onboard SD cards that you can see on the camera. And you could also choose when you're looking at the imagery with first-person view between a single image, blended image, or that picture-in-picture. Like other SUAS products, you're also able to access the camera through Bluetooth to make changes, but keep in mind the Bluetooth connectivity is not for video transmission or for first-person view. So when you're connecting the camera to the Bluetooth, you'll see down the top that there's a Bluetooth button. This is not like a GoPro Bluetooth where there's an app that you can see what the camera is seeing real time. That is only to change settings and connect to the app to set those settings. Hopefully that's clear. So the additional sensors like the GPS and IMU were intended to serve 2D and 3D aerial mapping missions. Geotagging images, like I said, no longer require you to tap into the airframe and can be done accurately and independently. So software companies like Pix4D, Drone Deploy, Bentley, Precision Hawk, etc. are making efforts to improve their output of thermal imaging orthomosaics. Stitch maps like this can create a powerful tool for covering large areas and pinpointing anomalies. So here you can look at solar panels, but in large commercial roofing applications or crops, field of crops, you can use the Duo Pro R. It doubles your data output and allows for these radiometric maps to be created. I know that for many mapping missions, some prefer 20 megapixel stills, and we understand that, but 12 is what we were limited to for a number of reasons, but hopefully this will still provide enough data for you to do some of these mapping missions. Yes, vector maps is another that you can choose to use. I apologize for leaving that out. So here's I thought this was an interesting video, but Bentley has context capture, and it's a pretty powerful software platform that can illustrate doing point clouds and 3D modeling for both visible and thermal imaging. The use of this technology will likely expand by the number of users that are doing these sorts of thermal applications. But I just wanted to show you the quality that's being put out and what you can do in the future with this camera. So next, I think that it's important to emphasize, and I did this earlier, that how different the Duo Pro R is than other thermal imaging cameras that you might associate with FLIR. So although it's similar in name, the Duo Pro R is completely different than the Duo, which is the GoPro form factor version that you see in the top, I guess the top left of the right side. That was announced in January of 2017. The Duo is a 160 by 120 resolution lepton-based camera in a GoPro form factor. It's intended for entry-level uses, but it does provide that dual EOIR capability. So this can be or has been confused of, I've seen what the Duo can do and it was low resolution. The Duo Pro R is very different than that. They do have some similar concepts. They both have MSX, but the Duo Pro R is a much more powerful platform in every way. The Duo Pro R is also a Tau2 based platform like the View Pro and the Zenmuse XT, but this dual camera, the onboard sensors, and the MSX technology are not presented in the View Pro or the Zenmuse XT. The Duo Pro R is a standalone camera, and it needs to be integrated into airframes, unlike the Zenmuse XT, which is plug and play with the Inspire 1, Matrice 100, Matrice 200 series, and the Matrice 600 series airframes. Just to take the platform to say it, the Zenmuse XT will never be integrated with an Inspire 2. There's no adapter that makes it available to be used on an Inspire 2 or an Osmo, and there's no plans between FLIR and DJI to ever make a thermal imaging camera directly for an Inspire 2 plug and play. I get asked that question probably more than any, and so I feel like this is a good platform to at least lay that out there, that the Zenmuse XT is limited to the Inspire 1 and the Matrice airframes, and that will be it for now and going forward. So when you purchase the Duo Pro R, this is what's included. There's 6 thermal imaging options for the Duo Pro R, so the camera is obviously going to come along with that, and we'll talk about what those options are shortly. It also comes along with integration cables, the GPS antenna for the IMU, and also a USB Type A and Type C cable, and the 2 64 gig SD cards that are on board. We were unable to include an HDMI cable. There was just basically some certification things that need to happen for you to include an HDMI. So if you're planning on using the digital output, The only thing that you'd have to source yourself is that HDMI cable. You may also want to integrate with a stabilizing gimbal system or downlink or a separate power source. Those things would be things you would have to get on your own. This is largely related to our relationship with DJI. We still make these standalone cameras, but they do require integration on your part. And we'll talk a little bit more about integration. So it's important to remember that this product is drone agnostic. It was not made for any specific drone, and the number of drones we've put this on are still relatively low. Depending on the sophistication of integration that you desire, you might want to stabilize the camera with a gimbal. We are unable as FLIR to provide that gimbal directly, so there are third parties that are providing options, and our dealer network will have a better idea of what those options would be to suit your specific needs. If you want to look further into this, please contact me and I'll put you in touch with the right contact. However, a majority of the testing with the Duo Pro R was done with the DJI Matrice 100, so we know that it can work or does work with that airframe. Early units have also been integrated with S1000s and M600s. The Gremsy T1 gimbal, that's what we showed at Interdrone, and that seems to be a very popular option for integrating these cameras. However, companies like Yangda in China started developing a custom gimbal that's trying to get as close to plug and play as possible. I'm sure that there will be more to emerge in the future. The Duo Pro R on a Gremsy gimbal weighs roughly around 200 grams more than the Z30 and the Zenmuse XT. So I would anticipate you'll see the Duo Pro R flown with other DJI airframes as well as other manufacturers, but that integration will depend on whether you can get the ground clearance and get a stabilizing gimbal that works for you. So we'll see this integration process mature over time when the cameras get out to the distribution network. So as mentioned before, there are only 6 variations of the Duo Pro R. Because you only have a single frame rate, just the 30 hertz rather than 30 hertz and 9 hertz, this will also speed up the purchasing process and make it a little easier for you to determine what camera you need and also to take to the geographical regions that you need to. So really, you as an end user only need to decide between the resolution, so 336 by 5 or 256 or 640 by 512. There's no downside to having high resolution cameras in this case. The only downside is that it's going to hit your pocketbook a little more. But as far as industrial applications, 640 in every case is a better option. And then you then need to choose what lens type. So for a smaller lens, meaning the 9mm or the 13mm, respective to the resolution, that's going to be a wider field of view. So you're going to be able to see more at any given time, but you're going to have less specificity and detail within the image. When you get up to the 19mm on the 336 or the hyper narrow field of view for these products, the 25mm on the 640, you're going to have a lot of specific detail, but you're not going to see as much at any given time. So the 25mm or the 640 is going to be generally for industrial inspection applications where it's not really a moving target. You know where it is. You just can't necessarily get too close to it. So that 25mm lens will allow you to get the detail you need without flying too close. So in the choices that you need to make when selecting cameras, resolution is one that commands the largest change in price. With the 640 resolution camera, basically you increase the number of pixels within the image, making it more likely to get the accuracy and detail that you need for your specific application. Like I said, there's no downsides to using a 640 resolution camera other than the cost. So putting a 320, which we could just assume 336, and a 640 camera side by side, you can still see the vehicles, you can still see the buildings and the trees, but if you look, and over webinar, I'm not sure how well this comes through, but if you look at the person standing in the background, they're much blurrier on the left image, and you can't really see that there's any gap between their legs. That just kind of illustrates the detail that you're missing. So this is probably around 50, 75 feet, or let's say 30 meters away. and or say 25 meters away. And if you were looking for this person, and let's say this was a remote area and you were trying to find, a missing person, how difficult would it be if you had a lesser resolution to make out whether it's a person or something else? So you can see here that resolution does matter, but in most instances, or in many instances, a 336 camera would still be adequate. If your mission is critical that you are able to detect something, and that you don't miss it, like a search and rescue mission. 640 camera is highly preferred. For firefighting or something like that, maybe 336 is fine. And we could go into more application stuff either via email or in the question and answer session if you'd like. For lenses, this just gives you an idea of comparing field of view between 9mm to 19mm. You can see on the 9mm lens that a smaller subject would be more difficult to identify. You could clearly see the person walking there, but you're not able to make out a lot of specific details. And if you were even flying higher than this, that person would be even smaller. But you're able to cover a larger area of ground at any given time. So here you could see the car on the left, you could see more of the field on the right. So if you did not know that this person was there and you were looking for them in a search and rescue mission, you're able to see more space at a given time using this wider field of view. Now, if you jump over to the 19mm lens, it's more like looking through a soda straw. You're able to see a lot of detail of the person, and the likelihood of you finding that person would be higher if you were able to pass over them, but you're seeing less space at a given time, so it would take more passes for you to end up with the camera focused on the subject. So keep that in mind as you're moving through making the decision on what lens you want to use. However, I'm a big believer that lens type is not something to necessarily be hooked on. There's always the option to fly closer, and some people don't like to hear that, but in most cases, if you don't have high trees or a lot of things impeding you from flying closer, flying closer with a 9mm lens will give you more detail, and you'll just lose the amount of space you're covering at a given time. So have confidence in the imagery that you're getting, no matter what lens you choose. I think that you'll be just fine. Okay. So there's a variety of industrial applications for drones in general, but aerial thermal imaging is especially used for the following. So border patrol, pretty clear, just identifying human beings. Building inspection, and this will be for roofs and also for some infrastructure. They are being used in construction while buildings are being made, but also for locating energy that could be escaping from the outside of a building. Can be used for, this will click, firefighting. That's pretty clear, but these also leak into search and rescue, which is its own category. For law enforcement, also for power line inspections, probably the number 2 use for aerial thermal imaging. Search and rescue, probably the number 1 and most compelling use for aerial thermal imaging. For solar panel array inspections, and for surveillance. So these are the primary verticals that we're selling these cameras into. But like many drone products, we're really seeing the use cases expand frequently. So if you're doing something new that falls outside of these applications, if you'd like to share, I'd love to understand more about how our cameras are being used out in the field. So shoot me an email. I'll be quite sensitive with anything that you send over if you don't want it shared. But if we can understand the applications that you're using them, we can make better products that will suit you. For pricing, we hadn't really publicly released pricing. I know that it's out there and that was completely fine, but hopefully this is pretty crystal clear of what the pricing is going forward. So for a 336 resolution Duo Pro R, no matter what lens size you choose, the retail price is $5,199. From FLIR, all of our prices are set in USD. So if you're purchasing somewhere in Europe, Latin America, Asia, the pricing on our side would still be in USD, but maybe through your value-added reseller, they would change that to the local currency, but just you can do that conversion on your own. And then for the 640 resolution cameras, for the 13 and 19 millimeter, it's the same at $7,599. and then the 25 millimeter camera is $7,999. Pre-orders are being taken now, so in this first batch of units that will be shipping in early November, I really highly suggest that you put your name on a unit right away, either through your local retailer or you can ask me and I can help you out with that, just so that you can be a part of this first delivery of units. So with that said, that's the information I wanted to provide. This is by far the most valuable portion of the webinar, so please make sure that you take advantage to submit some questions. I don't know how many we got already. It looks like there's quite a few, so I'm just going to scan through them and answer them as I go. And then if you want to continue to submit more, that's great. You have my email also on the screen, so you can shoot me an email if you'd like as well. Digital and optical zoom. So there is digital zoom capable on the visible camera. There's no optical zoom on either the RGB or the thermal camera. It is, let's see, justify the high cost. Okay, so thermal imaging in general is expensive, and if you look at the cost of thermal imaging cameras over the last 20 to 10 to 5 years, we're seeing it drop significantly. So for a tau-based system, this isn't high cost. For thermal imaging, this is on par with everything else. But I think that the number of units that we're selling, it's not like a consumer product. It's not an iPhone. It's not a TV set. There's, these are produced in the low thousands at most. And so when we're talking about production, that's going to change. The price is going to be based off of the demand. So if we were producing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these, you can assume that our economies of scale would change and that we'd be able to sell them for lower cost. But this is the cost is competitive with everything else that's on the market for thermal imaging, even with Chinese manufactured stuff. FLIR is the largest thermal imaging camera company in the world, and highest quality that's out there from my perspective. And so I think that it is a high cost, but it also, for the industrial applications that are being used, it should pay for itself. How accurate are the radiometric readings? Holy cow, questions are coming in fast. I can barely keep them on my screen. The radiometric readings are accurate to 5 degrees Celsius. We're working on the algorithms to make that higher or make that more accurate, but 5 degrees is what you can expect on the radiometric readings. Can this camera be integrated to a Phantom 4 Pro Plus? I think that the size would be too much for that. If you had a fixed mount on a Phantom 4, I think it would fly. I think it would reduce your flight time by quite a bit. I haven't done it. I can't say for sure, but theoretically, I think you could do it, but you probably would want performance of something a little bit larger. And that's just me being real. I think that some people would say, no, don't use it for a Phantom. I say you could, but I don't think that's the best option. Let's see. Okay, did I hear that using a Zenmuse gimbal on a Matrice 100 and Duo Pro is compatible with the proper brackets for the gimbal? So if you heard me say the word Zenmuse at all, no, this does not fit on any Zenmuse gimbal. This is not a DJI product, not supported by DJI. This is a agnostic camera. So there you can put this on a Matrice 100, yes, but as far as what you do to gimbalize it, that's something that you would need to work out with a reseller or with a third party. I can't really go too much more into that. Can it accept external GPS? Yes, I believe that you can use RTK GPS and put that into the system. I'm going to write that down. I gotta get my notepad. I'm going to write that down and verify that, and I'll send that in when I have that answer. I'll respond to that. But I believe you can use RTK GPS if you would like, and just funnel that into the camera. Okay, I noted that. Is geotagging on both pictures? Yes, it does geotag both RGB and the thermal image. What is the ballpark IMU GPS accuracy you're looking at? I think it's roughly 1 meter or 3 feet on the accuracy, but I think it's just commercial GPS that's on board. There's a lot of questions, so I'm going to keep answering them. If you want to stick around, I hope that this stuff is useful for you, and hopefully I'm answering questions that would come up for you. But there's a lot, and I'm going to keep going for at least another 20 minutes if questions keep coming. So bear with me. The question is, what software is used to conduct temperature analysis of the thermal data? FLIR tools or researcher, or do pixel values get saved when processing orthomosaic using photogrammetry software? So I would say for anything you're doing when it comes to post-analysis of the radiometric data, you would want to use FLIR tools, and you'd want to save all your files in radiometric JPEG. So that's going to be the RJPEG option, and that's likely what you would want to use. Whoever just sent me an email through the question and answer thing, I'm not going to be able to see that later. You have my email on the screen, so shoot me an email because I'm not going to be referring back to these after. As far as the trade-up program, we don't have one. Contact whoever you might buy this from, and maybe they'll cut you a deal or do something. But there's no trade-up program through FLIR. How does the camera compare to the Zenmuse XT? The thermal image should be the exact same. It is the same Tau 2 core. It's just not plug and play, fully integrated into the DJI Go app. You can get the imagery to be produced through the DJI Go app, but the DJI fully integrated product definitely has some niceties, but when you're comparing the two, this has a visible camera on board. The Zenmuse XT does not, and does not have MSX either. Can you record radiometric data on video? No, and I'll say not yet. I would assume that this will be something in the future that will work out, but it won't be anytime soon. What autonomous flight softwares work with the Duo Pro R? And then it just lists a bunch. I think that Pix4D is probably the furthest along in doing these missions, so I would suggest starting there. I can't say I've used all of them. I can't say that I fly industrial missions with these products at all. So the industry would know better. And actually, one interesting thing that could come up is there's a lot of Facebook groups dedicated to thermal imaging, or there's a few. But we're also thinking about doing some sort of FLIR hosted forum for this, so that you can work together and do this collaboration. So if that would be interesting to you, I would definitely love to hear feedback if there was just a single source where you could get all this information. Will this camera adapt to a Matrice 210? That's up to what you need it to do. If you just want to hard mount something, as long as you could downlink it, sure, the M210 could carry the weight. But if you're wanting full integration, that might be tricky. I can't say that we've put it on a Matrice 210. It could definitely carry the weight, but other than that, that would be up to the integrator, not really up to us. Geez Louise, still so many questions coming through, so I'm trying to get to all of them. Would you say 336 resolution would suffice for mapping purposes? I would say you would want 640 resolution for mapping. Would it suffice? Sure, but you're going to get a lower quality map. And so if you're trying to deliver something that is high quality, and if you want to stand by those results, I think that you would want to justify the 640 if you're going to be using this technology at all. The fastest still image acquisition rate is 1 image per second, I believe. I'm going to verify that because I've been saying that by assumptions of what's available on the UAS app, but there could be a way to unhinge that. Does strong wind affect the image processor? No, the wind will not affect your thermal image capturing. Movement will, but this camera sees through obscurance, and anything that's getting blown up wouldn't affect the image. Any information on IP rating? So this is not IP rated at all. I still think you could fly in some weather. Maybe I shouldn't be suggesting that, but I think that it's possible, but there's no IP rating at all. So just assume that it's not waterproof or water resistant whatsoever. Live streaming the image. This is going to be through downlinking the product. So whether you're doing digital or analog video downlink, you would want to get a transmitter that can do that. And if you have questions about how to do that, you might want to work through a value-added reseller or do some research, but those are going to be downlink systems. Connex makes a bunch. You can look at Immersion RC, analog transmitters. There's many brands, but that would be something that would be determined by how fully integrated you want it to be. I'm losing my place on these questions, but I really, really appreciate they keep coming. Can this be controlled using MavLink? Yes, this is intended for MavLink. Are there any plans to bring out a product capable with a handheld product like a DJI Osmo? Not from our end. We do make handheld thermal imaging cameras through our instruments group. These cameras are not necessarily ruggedized or meant for those conditions, but yeah, there could be one in the future. I wouldn't assume it will be a DJI product, but if you want to see that happen, keep pushing on DJI Enterprise to make an Enterprise Osmo. That would be the only way I could see that happening. Are there any plans for a pro-grade duo camera to integrate with DJI like the Zenmuse XT? DJI and FLIR are still working through their partnership. That's still going strong. We're still working through next generation products. So stay tuned on that, but there's not really any more information than that right now. Is the Duo Pro R intrinsically safe? I would say no. It's at least not certified to be intrinsically safe, so don't assume that it is. Any plans for a Mavic FLIR camera? I can say right now, no. At least nothing that has been discussed specifically to having a thermal imaging camera on a Mavic. I know that there are modifications that are being made to do that. If you want an introduction to someone that can make that happen for you, let me know. Just shoot me an email. Please mention the name of the gimbals that I was talking about. So first is the Gremsy, Gremsy T1. That's going to be kind of an open framed gimbal that can hold most cameras. And then there's also this new one from Yangda, Yangda. I just saw this yesterday and it looks like it's pretty cool. We'll see when it comes out, but those are the two that I've seen. I'm sure there'll be more to come out in the future. Does the camera need to be calibrated every year? I will say no, but I honestly don't know. I'll answer that question. I'll get with someone technical and see what they suggest as far as maintenance on that, but I will say no. Please email the compatible gimbals you mentioned. I can try, but I would rather you work through a third party, a value-added reseller on those because we don't control that. So if you shoot me an email, I'm happy to make an introduction, but I would rather not, do too much promotion of these gimbals. Let's see. What is the highest temperature the camera can handle? Are you talking about operating temperature or for what it can see? I know that we're getting over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. There's some way to ramp that up, but I think operating, you'd want it probably under 150 degrees Fahrenheit or maybe even 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that says it on the spec sheet, but that's I should be better at knowing that off the top of my head. But I think that 500 degrees Fahrenheit is where we draw the line for the sensing capabilities. Calibration necessary every year. Like I said, I'm not sure. I'll find out what's suggested for maintenance. With the Duo, the thermal image washes out on the horizon. Will the radiometric sensor fix this? That's mostly just going to be based off of the inputs you're putting into the camera as far as the atmospheric stuff. Now there's going to be some vignetting around the image when it's you're looking at the edges. In many cases with thermal imaging cameras, I don't think a radiometric camera will fix that. Oh my goodness, just got like 10 questions in a row. Let's see. If you need a drawing for the CAD drawing or anything like that, please shoot me an email. I'm happy to send you a CAD drawing. Will this webinar be available to view later? Yes, I'll send out a recording after we get done. Hello to everyone that was saying hi. That's very nice of you. Do we have a demo unit for testing? No. We just had a very few number of beta testing units that we put out. Those have already been sent. These units will be available, like I said, early November, so I suggest you get your hands on one then, but right now, just very limited quantities. Does strong wind? Oh, we already did that one. Someone lost me, but I don't know why. Something about a 3DR solo. Sorry, reading through these. Pre-order. If you want to pre-order anything, please shoot me an email. That's going to be the best way. Are you able to repair crash damage? It will definitely depend on the crash, but these repairs are going to be done in both Santa Barbara and Sweden. So we did expand the places where repairs will be done, so your RMAs will be turned around quicker. But that would depend if you've completely shattered it, crushed it. I don't know if it's worth it, but yeah, we do repairs, so I can't say for sure beyond that. Is MSX rendering live or done after recording? It is live. So if you look at the first person view or the live feed from the camera, you are able to see MSX. That doesn't require post-processing. Who offers repairs and support for Zenmuse XT? Because the Zenmuse XT is a DJI product, you'll want to contact support at DJI.com first, and they will be the front line. If it's something to do with the thermal imaging camera, it comes back to FLIR, but it is a DJI product and should go to them first. Don't know what fail is, but I guess I failed at something. Let's see. Did I suggest saving these as JPEG? I think that if you want to do post-processing, you want to save it as an RJPEG, a radiometric JPEG, which is a proprietary FLIR file type. But there is TIFF, the TIFF 14-bit files available as well. If you're just doing visual analysis, if you don't need the radiometric data, then saving in JPEG would be adequate. Can you upload files from the camera, and will they work for FLIR tools? Yes, they do work with FLIR tools. Just make sure you're saving as a radiometric JPEG. Can the GPS tagging be done during flight? Yes, that's why we put it on board, is so that it communicates directly. How does it fare against electromagnetic frequencies? I don't think the camera cares about electromagnetic frequencies. I think that's mostly the drone's GPS. Maybe the GPS on board also might be affected, so that's something that's a good question. I'll get back with you on that. When will the first shipment arrive? It depends where you are. The first shipments will leave our warehouses in Sweden, like I said, early November. So I would say within a week or so after that, you should be able to get it in your hands. Software compatibility list, FLIR tools, and then any orthomosaic software provider should have some concept of this. So Drone Deploy, Pix4D, Precision Hawk, Bentley, Raptor Maps, etc. But there's not like an exhaustive list that I have. Will FLIR tools work with the Duo Pro R? Yes. DJI Support. Oh yeah, sorry that if you're not getting responses on DJI Support. If you are having an issue with any of your thermal imaging cameras, even including the XT, shoot me an email. I'm happy to do what I can to help you out. It's just, like I said, DJI is the front line of defense for RMAs. I'm happy to help you any way I can. Battery time, there's no built-in battery at all. You're powering this through either the drone or a separate battery, so I can't really tell you. How this compares with Workswell, I would rather not go there right now. You can look at the specs and compare them yourself. We're partners with Workswell. I really respect what they're doing, but that's not really the purpose of this. Why two SD cards? There's two SD cards so that you can record both thermal and visible data simultaneously. So it's recording, but when you take a photo or an image or a video, it records simultaneously on both SD cards, both the visible and thermal, so you have both files saved. Let's see. Is there any way to save live MSX image rather than two separate images? Yeah, you can. This will save MSX images from the onto the SD card when you take those pictures. What was the other gimbal that I mentioned? It's Yangda, Y-A-N-G-D-A. I don't know what they're naming the gimbal itself, but that's who's manufacturing it. Any plans to create an IP-rated drone camera? No. I mean, there might be, it might be talked about, but just don't expect it anytime soon. Oh my goodness. Okay. Which card will have the MSX? I don't know. One of the two. I have no idea. Power drawn in mAh, in milliamperage. I just know that it's the 5 to 26 volts. I can't convert that to milliamperage. There's a converter to do it, but I can send an email after to answer that one. And thanks for everyone sticking around. I'm trying to get through these so that all your questions get answered before the time is up. We have 7 more minutes. Let's see. What is the power requirement for the unit? I answered that question, the 5 volts to 26 volts. If you have any questions further about that, let me know. Can we integrate into the DJI A3 flight controller with the LightBridge 2? I guess you tell me. I'm hoping so, but that would be determined on the level of integration sophistication you could do. DJI products have the SDK and they allow for third-party integration, but that could take some time and expertise, and that's why unless you're extremely crafty, working through a value-added reseller makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Okay, I know that the camera, the FLIR Duo are, how can you command the recording button? There's a really long one, DDA, and I'll respond to that separately because that's a really long question and probably specific to your use. There's no IP classification, answered that one. FLIR Duo R fit automatically in a GoPro enabled UAV like a Phantom 2 Vision. So the FLIR Duo, not the Duo, okay, sorry. The FLIR Duo, not the Duo Pro, is a GoPro form factor, and it can fit in any GoPro gimbal, but you would still need to do the downlink and power the camera and everything. That is, more on your side than the camera side. Okay. I'll answer this one's a very application specific question. I'll answer that separately so that it's, if it's a unique application that I'm not sharing with the world. That was the Osmo question. Does it provide a mid-exposure pulse signal for external synchronization? So it does do the nuke, do the recalibration to improve the image quality, but I don't know what a mid-exposure pulse signal is. I'll look into that and let you know, Lewis. Special license, so this is controlled by EU export controls, so you would need to have a license as it pertains to the EU, but if you're in the US, you don't need export license to get the product, but then if you're taking it out of the US, you would need to apply for export control or export licenses. What does MSX stand for? I don't even want to venture that guess. I don't even know, and that's embarrassing. Maybe if Dave Lee pops on and he knows what it stands for, but I have no clue what MSX stands for. Let's see. MSX rendering is done live. Can the sensor be mounted on the M100? Yes. Will this camera be able to switch between RGB mode and mixed? Yes, you can switch between RGB. Oh, sorry, Dave is trying to talk. Dave, you are unmuted if you want to talk, my friend.
MSX stands for multispectral image blending.
Oh my goodness, multispectral image blending is what it is. And Dave, if you have, I don't know if you can see these questions, but if you want to take any of them, I'm trying to pound through them. And so far, I think it's been all right. But if there's anything that you see that you specifically want to speak to, feel free.
I can't see the questions, but one thing that did come up is regarding the milliamps. The power consumption average is 10 watts. So obviously, depending on the input voltage you're using, that's going to vary the amperage.
Perfect. Again, for anyone asking for a CAD drawing and sending me their emails through the questions, can you please send that to my email? The email address is on the slide that's showing. Send me an email, say, hey, can you send me a CAD drawing? And I'm happy to do so, but I'm not going to be referring back to these questions to then send these out separately. Was it a T1 that we were displaying an InterDrone? Yes. Does the camera have a built-in transmitter? No. That's something that you would have to do separately, and we have the digital and analog output for whichever you decide. Can you use FLIR tools? Yes. Can the Bluetooth be manually disabled? And Dave, this is something that you would have more experience with than I would, and I know was a situation with some of our previous cameras. So what's the situation with disabling Bluetooth?
There's two ways to turn the Bluetooth on and off. Well, there are two ways to turn it on and two ways to turn it off. The two ways to turn it on is one, when you power up the camera, it's going to default to Bluetooth being on. There's a Bluetooth button on top of the camera so that you can turn it off, or you can turn it off actually from the app. And then if you don't want to cycle power to the camera and you want to turn Bluetooth back on again, you can just hit the button. But we do recommend that people, as part of their pre-flight checks, either disable the Bluetooth in the app or just reach down and hit the button on top of the camera.
Perfect. So there was 4 questions right in a row, all asking the same thing, and probably the second most asked question I get about these cameras is, can you change the lenses? The answer is no. When you determine what lens you want, you're going to have it fixed, and it's not going to be swappable under any circumstance. So that process, it would be extremely difficult. These cameras are not only calibrated based off of their lens, but also the MSX is done based off of the lens size that's on the camera. So yeah, just know that you're selecting a single lens. We tried to reduce the number of options to make it easier, but we did want to give a variety so that it can best suit your needs. But hopefully that one's put to rest with the people still left on the call. Let's see. I'm trying to find new ones. I gave you pricing. Can the lenses be swept? Can digital and analog be used at the same time? I don't know. Dave, do you know, can you use digital and analog at the same time on the camera?
I believe it can, yes. Yes, there's no selection in the app to choose one or the other that I know of.
Okay.
You can select the formats, the output formats, like for the analog, but I believe you can use both at the same time.
Cool.
I hedge on that just simply because I've never tried it myself.
Gotcha. So for the RGB, it is not a global shutter. It is a rolling shutter camera, just to get that out there, as far as I know, at least. Let's see. A lot of repeat questions, so I'm just clicking through them, and there's still quite a few left, and we probably, I'll maybe go for another 5 minutes. So I appreciate, again, everyone sticking on here. This is recorded. I'll send it out, and then I'll send out a follow-up email trying to answer most of the questions that are left so that it doesn't run on forever. But I'm still just clicking through to find some that haven't been answered. So there's a question about max detection to find a human, and there's some charts that show, how far away you can be from an object based off of your resolution and lens size to detect different objects. There isn't like a clear answer to say this is how far you can find a person, because there are a variation in resolution and lenses. So if you're interested in getting more information on that, just shoot me an email and I'll send you those charts over so you can kind of plug through those on your own. Let's see. Someone asked if I got a promotion. Not yet. Working on it. Dave, you gonna help me out with that?
As far as I'm concerned, you're king of the hill, man.
Thanks, brother. Let's see. Lens lengths. Is the lens length the same for both cameras? No, they're not the same, but they are. They're made so that the imagery overlays perfectly, so it's not necessarily the same lens length on both cameras. I'm still working through them, and I'm not seeing any unique questions, but there's still a lot of them left. So maybe try for another few minutes to find something. And again, thank you everyone for being patient while I look through these. Geez, I think we covered a good portion of them. A lot about Bluetooth being disabled during flight, the images being geo-referenced during flight, what file formats are available on the Duo Pro R. So you're definitely able to get the JPEG, radiometric JPEG, and TIFF files. For video output, I would assume that it's M4A. Dave, do you have an idea on file types for video?
It's H.264 compression and an MP4, I believe it is, output. There
it is. Someone said that they bought the Autel XStar with the FLIR Duo on it. I'm really stoked that you bought that. I didn't know that they released that yet, but we're happy that Autel is integrating the Duo onto their XStar, but I don't know where that's at as far as when they're going to be releasing that to the public. So keep your eyes peeled on that, and if I hear anything, I'll for sure let you know. A lot of people that have been asking questions are now dropping off, so we'll cut it off there. If I didn't answer your question, I am going to be going back through them and making sure that I have answered everything. So you'll see an email from me within the next hour or so. I'm going to stop the recording on the video, get that processed, get that uploaded onto a YouTube link, and then send those out. So I apologize if your question didn't get answered now. thank you so much for being a part of this. Your support is really, really appreciated. Dave, thanks also for being a part of this and fact checking me on some stuff. And I might have some questions I'll need your help with over the next hour or so. But again, we'll talk soon. Shoot me an email if you have any further questions or if there's anything I can do for you. Have a great Friday, and we'll be in touch. Take care.